Welcome to Haiti Policy House. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Wolf Panfil, and I'm the Executive Director of Haiti Policy House. We are a DC-based think tank focused primarily on foreign policy towards Haiti and in shaping those policies. And part of our mission is to highlight impactful research on Haiti and understand their impact on policy and the daily lives of Haitians living in Haiti and abroad. Today, we are highlighting a study named Social Origin of Dictatorship, Elite Networks and Political Transitions in Haiti. This paper is written by Drs. Suresh Naidu from Columbia University, Dr. James Robinson from University of Chicago, and Dr. Lauren Young from UC Davis, California. I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Suresh for his introduction and just let us know a little bit more about you. What do you do, where you work, and just unmute yourself and then just hop on. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. My name is Suresh Naidu. I'm a economist at Columbia University. And I sort of work on political economy broadly, like I think all of us do, and political economy, economic history, development, and labor economics. And you know, partly we got into studying Haiti because we thought it was understudied and it was just kind of a very rich place for studying these kind of determinants of democracy and consequences of non-democracy, which has kind of been a theme in some of my research going back to my dissertation. So I'll pass it over to Jim.
Yes, I'm James Robinson. I'm an economist, political scientist at the University of Chicago. Now, I work on exactly the same things as Suresh, except I don't work on labor economics last time I checked. So I work on political economy and development. I worked a lot in different parts of Latin America, especially in Colombia, where I've taught for 30 years. I've worked in Bolivia and Chile, and I work a lot in sub-Saharan Africa also. So I think, you know, we got interested in the Haitian case because, you know, it's fascinating, the history, of course, of Haiti and the revolution and this long kind of period of independence, struggling for autonomy is fascinating. And it, you know, in some sense, it's in a region where many things look good for democracy, you know, in the sense that, you know, political scientists would think that what creates dictatorship tends to be labor repressive agriculture. You know, think of Guatemala or parts of Central America where, you know, you have repression of indigenous people and agrarian elites, you know, and that's a massive impediment to democracy. You don't have that in Haiti. You have a kind of landowning peasantry. You know, you don't have ethnic cleavages of the sort that seem to impede democracy in many parts of Africa. You're in a pretty democratic region. You know, if you think of the Caribbean, there's lots of democratic success stories in the Caribbean, Barbados and many other places. So I think from that perspective, it's sort of you know, it's a puzzle why it's been so difficult to sustain democracy. And then I think this was you know, Suresh's amazing instinct for evidence, which was that at the time of the coup against President Aristide, the US government froze the assets of a large number of Haitians that it accused of being involved in the coup. And so you had something very unique from a social science perspective, which was a list of people who kind of took part in a coup d'etat, which I don't think we'd ever seen before. So that also spurred us to try to investigate, you know, what's the story in Haiti and how does it fit into this bigger social science literature?
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for that. So give us a brief overview of the paper, because the title is Social Origin of Dictatorships, Elite Networks, and Political Transitions in Haiti. Because right now, I mean, as of yesterday, we've had a lot of Haiti's bit of a limbo, because yesterday was supposed to be a political transition from the current administration to the next one. And we haven't had an election. And we haven't had a stable political transition in a long time. And let's talk about the research. Tell us, from your perspective, a brief overview of what you think the paper is about and what you hope it achieves.
So I'll start with sort of, I think what the paper is about, which is, you know, what we're sort of trying to study is the economic motivations and sort of asking the like who benefits from democratic and non-democratic transitions. And one of the things we noticed in Haiti and sort of in finding this list, so this was this brief moment, right, when the Aristide government kind of comes to power, and you're thinking, and you know, I think it's the world is thinking, okay, we're finally going to have like the moment for like a you know, and he comes to power in the first time as part of kind of like a democratization wave after the Duvalier dictatorship. And then he's overthrown in a coup. And one of the sort of interesting things about, as James pointed out with the data availability, is that it was like a brief window in the post-Cold War United States where it was kind of really into kind of trying to support democratization efforts. And so the Clinton administration sort of targeted sanctions against participants in the coup against Aristide. And so you have this Office of Foreign Asset Control, which still exists. You can always go download the list of all the people that the US has sanctions against. And but when you go back, you can then find this list for Haiti. And it's basically a who's who of social elites in Haiti. And it really sort of points out that the like kind of the political organization and muscle behind the overthrow of Aristide was sort of coming from a lot of the business elites of Haiti. And so we were kind of trying to unravel that thread and look at kind of and look at sort of what explains the variation in who's kind of like on the list versus not on the list, as a function of kind of both their relationships to each other and these kind of historical cleavages you have within the Haitian elites, for example, between kind of like the people Duvalier brought into the regime, this old Lebanese and just kind of immigrant elite from the early 20th century. And so we kind of explored the role of these family ties and networks in sort of generating this in explaining who was participating in the coup. And sort of the first result of the paper is sort of showing that families that are extremely central in the Haitian family networks, so they're married a lot to each other, they're very like closely tied to each other, these families were much more likely to find themselves on this Office of Foreign Asset Control list. And so we kind of suggested that means that they were like, more likely to be involved in the coup against Aristide. And then the second part of the paper is kind of trying to explain who benefited from the coup by kind of looking at, so Haiti has this other property of it's an extremely import dependent country. And it imports everything, even things like staple goods that it should be able to produce domestically. And so like a clear place to look, and it's interesting, one of the things we found in visiting Haiti is, right, so many of these elite families, they kind of control the economy by controlling trade routes, and there's and controlling like access to trade. And so we could look at the price of imported goods, and while collecting data on the ground inside Haiti is hard, there's basically it's much easier to collect customs data that sort of measures the volume of the prices and quantities of goods coming into and out of the country. And so we basically look to see when the second coup against Aristide happens, does the prices of the goods that are differentially imported by the families that were participating in the coup, did those go up? And so it's kind of trying to match the participation in the coup with the kind of economic incidence of the transition away from democracy. And that's kind of like, I think, we had some results that got taken out in the final draft about how that increase in prices translates into like childhood stunting and things like that wound up getting taken out of the paper. But it was kind of trying to paint a picture of both like, here's who is behind the transition away from democracy, here's how they benefited by sort of increased monopoly power over trade. And so that let them raise the prices And some meat behind that story is that basically one of the things that Aristide sort of threatened to do was kind of open up access to imports, so that you could have many more people entering the sector, and that was like a real threat to the profit of businesses that were kind of centered on importing things from abroad. And so we were then kind of could then say that, okay, actually, I'm not sure it's probably not the only reason to participate in the coup, but one of the things that does seem to matter is, or that seems to be happening, is that the sectors where there's many more people that participate in the coup also disproportionately experienced increases in price when democracy left again. And so that's kind of the paper in a nutshell. I don't know, James, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's brilliantly summarized. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So I'm just gonna throw a few questions at you guys, just to dive deeper. So you walked us through the idea, what sparked the paper, the research. Now you talked about collecting data and creating a list, you have a unique data set. This is a research that, I've spent years researching Haiti. I am also Haitian. I've never seen a research like this before. And that's why it really caught our eyes to be like, you know what, let's see what's unique about this. It is very unique. And you have a unique data set, especially now we have current sanctions being imposed on some of the same families that you researched. How did you go about collecting that? Let's dive a little bit deeper, because there are people who may not understand the SDN list or the list of sections. And how did you, from having that list, how do you now translate that to Haiti and understand local context? Because if you're not, both of you, I'm gonna assume that you're not Haitian, but how do you now take that information and then apply local context to it just to understand what was happening?
Yeah, I could say, can I talk a bit about that? I think a lot of the data that Professor Naidu is talking about, this trade data, you can buy that from different sources, and that's sort of internationally available. I think the biggest challenge was, I think if you pick up any book on Haiti, any history book or any book on the politics of Haiti, they talk about these elites and the role of these elites. And there's a lot of social science literature, vaguely about elites. But actually, I think, one thing that excited us about this is that it's rare to have a context. People talk a lot about elites. I work a lot in Colombia. People talk about elites, and you can certainly identify some of them, but it's usually pretty vague who's an elite and who's not an elite. And what we found interesting in Haiti is there's a much clearer kind of sense of who these people are, and the same names come up all the time. So it seemed like there was something much more concrete to kind of engage with, that Haitians themselves, so Haitians writing about Haiti talk about, and they talk about mechanisms, they talk about people, they talk about families. So I think that was the sort of starting point for us. And then when we visited Haiti, what we found was a lot of resources. There's a genealogical association in Haiti with an enormous interest in tracing family histories and tracing marriage patterns. There's a sociologist, Daniel Supplice, if I remember his name correctly, who wrote several fantastic books about genealogies and kind of biographical dictionaries of Haitians, kind of tracing their ancestry. So I think we were able to tap into this immense knowledge of Haitians themselves who've been interested in their genealogy and their family history, which allowed us, to sort of not just trace the history of particular families, but to understand their interlinkages. So Suresh was talking about building these social networks. So you'd like to know at a kind of sociological level how families are connected to each other through marriage patterns, but also economically through kind of collective interest in different businesses or different economic sectors. So I think what we tried to do when we visited Haiti to do field work was to understand better, the sort of sociological reality in Haiti. But we were enormously benefited by the rich kind of resources, intellectual resources that we found there, and people who are just very knowledgeable about these things.
Yeah, I'll just say that we really benefited from the presence of both like the diaspora Haitian academics. So like Inured in Miami was a really great resource for us and sort of helped us navigate the local space and setting up contacts for us to talk to. And Patrick Elie was like the late Patrick Elie was also very helpful for in talking to us and kind of giving us the lay of the land. He was put into touch with us from some journalist friends of ours. And I'll say that the other thing is that because Haiti is small and relatively close knit, you could actually kind of walk into a bookstore and kind of find these books like Les Grandes Familles de Haiti that were kind of like talking about the genealogies and the family histories of sort of the various elite families in Haiti. And I think the thing that I think put the paper together was that there was actually an online database that kept track of Haitian genealogies that I think was like maintained by a source in Montreal, if I remember correctly. And so it was like somebody had gone through and taken all of these genealogical information and turned it into a giant database of marriage patterns and descendants that we could kind of then match to this like sanctions list and kind of then make this measure of like your centrality in these family networks on your probability of showing up in that list.
Amazing, thank you. Now, just pivoting on democracy, sanction, and insecurity, what correlation do you find between, you talk about doing the overview, but what's the correlation between someone being part of a elite or family of elite or political, economic, and the likelihood of being on the sanction list or being part of a political coup? What are the what are the incentives that, and also what are the factors that drive or impact the likelihood of that? Either one of you can take it if you want. If you want Suresh or
I think James wrote a book on this, so.
Okay. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I mean, I did write a book on it. Yeah, I mean, I think we were interested. We were focused on the kind of economic incentives. You know, as Suresh was pointing out, when President Aristide's government was a pretty unique thing in the history of Haiti, and it was it was a popular coalition. It included kind of many poor and previously politically marginalized people, and many of the policies that he wanted to push for were threatening to the economic interests of elites. And so, a simple kind of economic intuition would be, people, this is what we tried to document, that people took part in the coup, depending on their economic interests, but also, kind of sociologically, because we could map the nature of this network, some people are more important in the network in the sense they have more connections to other important people, and so those people have an incentive to take part in the coup also because they can move. They have a lot of power to actually sort of overthrow the government. They can get other people to move along with them. So there's both the sociological aspect and the economic aspect. Other things equal, you want to participate in overthrowing the government of President Aristide because his policies are threatening to your economic interests. But also, you have an incentive to take part because you yourself can have a big impact on whether or not the coup happens. So there's those two kind of there's those two parts of it that that the evidence says something about.
Perfect. Now the paper doesn't really talk about the foreign influence, mainly the U.S. Foreign involvement, like the U.S., Canada, France, and their role in political transitions in Haiti. Can you tell us how that fits into the equation, or because we don't really talk about it in the paper? So, I mean, some people may say, you know what, that's one of the main reasons why Haiti political transitions happen in Haiti. During your research, what did you see? What was the link between the U.S. and all this? Oh, not just the U.S., but foreign nations.
I mean, I'll just start by just sort of pointing out that the existence of the fact that the U.S. in that brief, like, post-Cold War period, you know, before 9/11, after the fall of the Soviet Union, where it was kind of, you know, there was at least some ideas inside the U.S. government that, okay, well, we'll like support democracy, we'll try to support democracies when it's, you know, convenient for U.S. interests at least, and so like the idea that they would put sanctions, and this is like a government that as recently as the 80s is like, you know, supporting death squads all over Latin America, and the idea was that I think there was a push of like, no, okay, we'll try to come back to human rights and democracy, and so I think Haiti is like has a brief window of being a beneficiary of that, in that they're sanctioning the elites of Haiti that are kind of like they've identified as responsible for overthrowing democracy, and then I think, like, you know, this is not my expertise or anything, but I do think Haiti both suffers from attention and lack of attention from the U.S. It's like often when there's attention, it's captured by a very narrow group of interests, either inside the U.S., like a very narrow set of both U.S. and diaspora interests, and then, but a lot of the time it's just kind of ignored. And despite it being so close, and despite it having so many ties to the U.S., and so. Yeah, so I think it's difficult. We managed to do it by focusing on this like cross elite variation inside Haiti, but I think any like kind of, and so that's why the paper is just like one kind of empirical exercise. But I think, you know, you wouldn't write a book, or you wouldn't write like try to say that the whole story of Haiti is explained by the particular thing we identify in our paper, and clearly any like larger story of Haiti has to account for the international context. How do you get somebody like Duvalier in the first place? You know, the end of slavery, the debt imposed by the French, all of that stuff is clearly goes into the conditions that give rise to both the need for a democratization movement and the response to it. But you know, in our kind of we're kind of very much our paper is very much a bounded, only little piece of the overall story.
Thank you. James, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you know, when you're when you're an academic writing an academic paper, you know, you're kind of very tightly focused on trying to establish some argument and test the hypotheses, and there's many other things that are relevant, but the research design that you have doesn't really allow you to say anything about that. You know, I think exactly as Suresh was saying, you know, like the history of the US occupation, and, you know, like obviously that's those things are very important in understanding how Haiti got to be kind of where it is today, and why it's so vulnerable, you know, to control by these elites, and why it's so difficult to kind of build a democratic system. You know, I was mentioning at the start that actually, you know, if you kind of back out a little bit, many things about Haiti seem to be very conducive to creating a democracy, you know. So why don't those things kind of engage? Like, why doesn't that logic work? And I think that's got a lot to do with the history, you know, that Suresh just identified. You know, that is somehow what distinguishes Haiti, you know, is that very perverse, you know, history, and you know, despite all of these positives, you know, that's what leaves it where it is, I would say, kind of big picture. But our research design doesn't allow us to really say much about that, unfortunately.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now, speaking of actual measures, right? You use food as a way to measure impacts of democracy or democratic times or non-democratic times. Right, you use food for that. Why did you use food, and exactly what type of food, or I guess commodities, you think is directly related or interlinked to that?
I mean, we were looking at like all the imports we could, which includes a lot of food imports for Haiti. So it's everything from chicken to oil, even rice. Haiti imports, even though they grows a lot of its own, they grow a lot of rice. So and so we're looking at imports of all kinds of things, in again, the part of the paper I liked but didn't make it to the final draft was partly it was like because these things are big inputs for child development, is like access to food, and so when we had these like stunting results, it was kind of really directing like the costs of this. You know, one of the ideas that the costs of non-democracy is that you get this monopolized trade and this monopolized importing of sort of like very basic necessities like food that then has like long-term development consequences because it reduces like childhood nutrition, which is going to like, you know, it leaves long-term consequences from everything that we know. And that's kind of a real like economic development cost of the absence of democracy, is when you have this kind of like very narrowly controlled market structure, you're going to wind up with like marked up and lower food imports, and that's going to be bad for economic development.
Okay. Now, James, I just have a question for you. This issue with elite, political elite, whether it's economic, is not unique to Haiti, right? And there are other countries throughout Latin America, the Caribbean. But however, there's still a level of basic need that is met by for public needs, like let's say electricity, water, education, healthcare. There's still a basic level of what's it called, support that the public gets from the government. Why, from your perspective, what do you think make that different from Haiti group compared to other countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sense in which the state, you know, the basic sort of state infrastructure works much less well in Haiti than it does, you know, even in a place like Honduras, you know, or Guatemala, you know, that just the basic capacity of the state to kind of raise taxes and provide public goods, electricity, and things like that is maybe weakest in Haiti of any place in the Caribbean or Central America. And I think there's different reasons for that. You know, I think one reason, you know, Paul Farmer, the late great Paul Farmer, you know, if Paul was here, he'd sort of say, well, part of that is due to the very perverse way that the international institutions and NGOs and interact with Haiti, you know, often for very good, you know, with very good intentions, but the reality is to kind of infantilize and, you know, deinstitutionalize the Haitian institutions, because you've got Haiti's been in this equilibrium for a long time, whereby everybody says, oh, the government is corrupt and it's incompetent and whatever it is, so we're not going to give them any resources, we're not going to give them any money. We're going to create our own institutions. We're going to create a kind of parallel government, and you know, but that never really works. Kind of fundamentally at addressing the problems of Haiti. Like what needs to happen is Haitian institutions need to be built, and I think some people get that. I was just recently, you know, before the whole pay lock and the kind of you know disintegration of the country just before, you know, President Moise's assassination, I was actually involved with a project at the Inter-American Development Bank, and that was all about, you know, can we kind of dismantle all of these parallel structures that international donors have, you know, that have created that sort of really undermine the credibility and functionality of the Haitian state, and put these resources into the Haitian state and sort of have some confidence in their ability to kind of build structures and build institutions. I think that's what needs to happen. So I think part of the problem is this perverse interaction with international donors and institutions. Of course, it's also historical. You know, it's partly to do with the way the politics of the Duvalier regime, you know, the very unique way that Duvalier kind of ran things by sort of deinstitutionalizing the state, you know, very personalized way of operating. He didn't go through institutions. He didn't want to build institutional structures. He wanted to keep everything within his own personal control. And that had a very bad effect on on the state in Haiti. And I think if you look around the region, it's difficult to find, even Trujillo, on the other side of the border in the República Dominicana, even Trujillo kind of was more of an institution builder, at least in the sense that he was interested in his own personal economic welfare. It's actually an interesting comparison. He owned vast amount of properties and businesses in the Dominican Republic, and he kind of invested because he himself benefited from those investments. And somehow that logic doesn't work in Haiti. I think maybe it's to do with the kind of competitive or the interaction between these elites. But I'm talking too much. But I think that the fundamental reason is the nature of the state and the weakness of the state. And I think like going forward, that has to, of course, the governance of the state, the democracy, the extent of democracy and accountability, that's critical too. But this institutional aspect seems to be, the answer to what you're talking about. Of course, it's also got to do with the fact that, without democracy, there's no pressure on the state to deliver these things. And obviously that's been a big problem in the history of Haiti.
I think you covered that very well, because if you look at the Dominican Republic, they also have the same dynamics. They also have very wealthy families, very wealthy people. However, there's still a level of investment that's being made by those same businesses or the wealthy folks, because they want to invest in that. They see a benefit from investing in that country themselves. And this is for both of you. Either one of you can answer this. But if we're thinking about there's a monopoly in Haiti, based on your research and perspective from other countries and the work that you've done in the past, what are some solutions that have been used to sort of, I guess, demonopolize certain economies, or to find avenues to improve situations where there is a strong hold on democracy or an economic system? How do you loosen that?
Who's the you?
What was that?
Who's the we? And it really does depend. It's like the thing is, there's like a
the Haitian people, the interested parties, the stakeholders. That's like how the people who are interested in seeing a better Haiti. How do we loosen those networks, and how do we demonopolize the economy?
I mean, I think James will have more interesting things to say. I'll just say it's like the one of the key things I take from this thing is that the point that we had about like you cannot impose this from abroad is actually, I think, really true. And so like the fact is you need to be like on the ground and in some sense building the institutions and the rules and like and just kind of having the structures there that kind of are getting built and being built in a way that has some order on it, and that it's like it's not personalistic. It's not just kind of happening through the arbitrary decisions of like a few people or like a small group. It's got it's at least got some sort of third party rules being enforced in some sort of impartial way. And that's kind of like I think a first order thing to just like start building is like that kind of not running the state in the interest of a narrow group, but kind of having some sort of general impartial governance, and building out what that impartial governance does over time is kind of like strikes me as the one of the paths forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's one way, I think there's different ways. I mean, I think, if I thought about, the history of my own country, which is England, or Great Britain, probably the period before it was Britain, we had elites, we had lots of elites, and what did we do with the elites? They're all still there, by the way, they're all there. You can go to the Ascot and the Henley Regatta, and they're there, so how did we deal with them? We kind of showed them that their interests were compatible with a democratic and much more flourishing society. Paul Farmer, to quote Paul again, he used to say, like things are such a disaster in Haiti that, you know, even if you're the richest person in Haiti, if you get ill, you have to go on an airplane and go to Miami. You know, like this is collectively disastrous, even for these elites. You know, like it's collectively disastrous. The country is poor. You know, you're right next to this enormous market, United States of America. There's huge potential, you know, for wealth creation and prosperity. And so how do you get out of this? How do you sort of change these people's narratives? And, you know, and I think that's what, if you look at Britain, this happens in the late 17th, 18th century. They find a way to kind of reconcile the interests of these elites with a new society, with new institutions, and they get them to see that this isn't going to be threatening to you, and in fact, this is going to be fantastic for you. And of course, that's what actually happened. You know, so think about South Africa. You know, South Africa is an interesting case. You know, very polarized between the apartheid regime. You know, between Africans, Black Africans struggling for freedom, political rights, economic rights, lots of monopolies owned by white people. That was the negotiation. They made a deal. Why? Because white people saw, okay, it's unsustainable. The current situation is unsustainable, and there's a different future which we can be part of. That was Mandela's genius, to get the whites to see we can all be part of this. You know, you too. You know, we can all be part of this. So don't, you know. And so I think that has to happen in Haiti too. Now, some process of reconciliation or negotiation or like that has to, and you know, you may have to make concessions to these people, you know, which is sort of galling at some level, you know, and it's frustrating and but it has to happen. Look at Colombia, you know, like many people were upset at these Marxist guerrillas. You know, my own wife's, who's Colombian, her grandfather, aunt, and uncle were all kidnapped, you know, by these Marxist guerrillas. People like that hate them. They hate them. They resent them. But they're like, we need to do this to move on in society. You know, we need to stop these people fighting, and to stop them fighting, we have to make some concessions to them. And so I think that's what has to happen. There's some sort of process of, you know, some kind of social contract where these people can kind of see, like, kind of reflect on the current situation in Haiti and kind of have some vision of how the society could be different. You know, it's an amazing place culturally, socially. You know, I asked a friend of mine, Tim Schwartz, a friend of, I'm not sure if Suresh knows him, but he's an anthropologist who's lived in Haiti for 40 years, you know. And I asked him, like, why do you like Haiti? Like, what's so good? What's so good about Haiti? You know, I wish we could have asked Paul, you know, and he told me, no one's lonely in Haiti. Like, nobody's lonely. You know, I've never met a lonely person in Haiti. You know, and he told me it's the one country he's ever been in the entire world where, you know, you could call across the street to somebody and say, excuse me, can you help me? And the person would come across and help you. You know, like at some personal level, it's a remarkable, you know, kind of place, no? And so there's plenty to play with, but there has to be some kind of rebooting, it seems, of this equilibrium. And it has happened. You know, that's what happened in Costa Rica, you know, in 1948, that set Costa Rica off onto a very different path from the rest of Central America. So it's not complete utopianism.
I think this is the one of the main purposes of Haiti policy, that is finding, because I strongly believe that there are solutions for Haiti exist. It's just that we haven't been able to connect the dots, or at least find solutions from other countries and bring it back to Haiti, and also create a space where they can be applied or, you know, worked on. Well, James, thank you so much. That was amazing. That was great input, and I think you and Dr. Suresh. Too bad Dr. Lauren couldn't join us today, but your paper, like I said, I read it 2 years ago, and I've read it over 70 times. Everyone I speak with, I'm like, you have to read this paper because it's unique. I've read a lot about Haiti. A lot of them cover Duvalier or Aristide or the US interventions or the revolution, but none have covered, at least explicitly, the elite networks within Haiti to the level of detail that that you've done. So I think this was amazing. For anyone watching, we will have the link for the article attached to this video in the description. And please read it, share it, and let us know your thoughts. Again, my name is Wolf Pamphile. This is Haiti Policy House, a space where we think about Haiti, we think about foreign policy revolving around Haiti, and we try to come with solutions to improve and help Haiti. So Dr. Suresh, Dr. James, thank you very much for your help. Thank you very much for your contribution. And till next time, thank you.
My pleasure.
Bye.